Hi everyone, good evening. I don't know where all of you are, but I'm based in Dubai. So I hope that it's not too late or too early for anyone. But anyways, I'm really pleased to be here today and very grateful to Hadafi and Potential for inviting me to address everyone here. So I'd like to start explaining a little bit about the topic of my presentation today. So as you know, leadership has so many definitions. And there are so many different leadership styles. But one of the styles that I'm very passionate about and that I believe is the real, recipe, I would say, for success and for gaining alignment and buy-in from your own teams and stakeholders at large is authentic leadership. So today, I'll just be covering a number of things, and I just want to start with a couple of questions. One is, have you ever said that a person is born a leader? So, we're going to talk today on whether, authentic leadership is something that you're born with or is something that you can acquire. And then a general question to the room, and feel free to answer it if you'd like, is have you ever noticed how some people seem to be more authentic about themselves than others? And on that question, I'll be covering the key points about what makes somebody an authentic leader. What's the definition and what's the characteristics of an authentic leader? I'm going to also talk about how authentic leadership is recognized. What are the qualities? Practically speaking, what can you do in your own life and in your own businesses or the businesses you're going to start, or even in your personal life as a leader, in your own family, in your own social circle? What can you practically do to really become an authentic leader? I would like to start by introducing myself, since not many people here know me. Personally, I see myself as a really global citizen of the world, but I'm originally Egyptian. I'm born in New Zealand. I lived in more than 7 countries and visited many, many more. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my education and my career, because I believe that these are really foundations for becoming a leader in the future, and they really shape your thinking and your past experiences as a younger person truly make you who you are today. In terms of my education, I was basically born in New Zealand, as I said, and then I went to a kindergarten in Switzerland, and then I went to a French school in Ethiopia, followed by an American school, and then I moved to school in Egypt, where I continued in the American system, and then moved forward to the American University in Cairo, and I have a Bachelor of Arts in International Relations and a minor in philosophy. My passion is really human rights, leadership, youth empowerment, communication, so I've taken various courses in these fields, and perhaps the reason why I'm invited today, I think. In terms of my career, I've had a really interesting shift, and I'm not really sharing this, to sit here and talk about myself, but I'm just sharing this to share a personal story that can, perhaps maybe inspire some of you to really pursue what you want in life. As I mentioned, I was always very passionate about human rights and becoming a leader in that area. And when I was a young kid living in Ethiopia, I used to live in a huge house, and right next to me was a small mud house that was, almost falling apart, I would say. So, that was really the beginning of when I started to be interested in the humanitarian and human rights fields. And, I would go to school every morning and, see these little poor kids running in the street, playing football with, a pair of socks wrapped in plastic, and barely any shoes to wear while playing football. And that really struck the light, a bulb in my mind, as you say, and I was like, how can I help these people? What am I supposed to do? Do I have a purpose in this world that I can fulfill that would actually help them? So this is where it all started. And then when I went to school, and particularly the American schools I went to, they all had, Model United Nations programs. So I joined that, and I was always a leader in human rights commissions, and and Model UN is really modeling the United Nations. So I played active roles at the university and school levels as a student leader in these programs, and it brought me a little bit closer to my passion, of doing stuff in the humanitarian field or inspiring others to get involved in the humanitarian field. And of course, in parallel, I was always doing a lot of work in the community. So when I graduated from college, and that was in 2001, I was like, okay, where do I go from here? How do I actually live my passion? So I decided to actually, I've always been passionate about refugees and economic migrants and the kind of struggles that they have to go through in order to survive, often, fleeing and crossing borders from country to country. And, it's just their plight and their cause was something that was very close and dear to my heart. So, I was like, okay, how can I work in the UN and help these people? And which agency should I go to? So I chose the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And obviously, it's very competitive and difficult to enter the UN. So I basically pursued my passion and went straight to them and said, listen, I know it's very difficult to work for you, but I'm going to volunteer. I want to do just any job that you guys are going to offer me. And that was the beginning of a 6-year career with UNHCR, and I would say international as well. So I started in Cairo, but I ended up a year later in East Sudan in a refugee camp, working with Eritrean refugees, and then went back to Egypt, did some more work, and then I was thrown again in like a refugee camp in the south of Algeria to help Sahrawi refugees. And then I worked on the Rafah border in Egypt, and then moved on to Tunisia to lead one of the offices of UNHCR there. So that was really, a big step in my life that, I had a passion and pursued it all the way, starting with, just being a volunteer and, pushing through to just get any job at the UNHCR. And eventually I was hired and been a permanent staff there. I then made a move from, my last post was Tunisia. I made a move to Dubai, worked in the PR field for 1 year. I left the UN for personal reasons and had to move to Dubai. From there on, I went back to Egypt. I worked as a consultant for UNESCO. My focus was really on education. So I contributed to developing the Egypt National UNESCO strategy on education. And then, in 2008, in September, I was actually hired to work for PepsiCo. So I made a humongous shift, into the corporate world. And from there on, today I basically, head the corporate affairs function for the Middle East and Africa. And that covers, corporate communications, corporate social responsibility or CSR, and executive comms. So again, it was a huge shift in terms of realigning my values, readapting the way I run my life and myself and my morals, and making that shift could have been, I think, one of the best things that happened to me, but also very. I would say it was a very important time of transformation. So that's just a quick intro, and I think it's going to pave the way to a lot of the discussion that's coming next. So I just want to recap about passion, because I want all of you on this webinar to really think about what is your passion. What are the things that really drive you and motivate you and enable you to be, successful in your life, and, what are these push factors that would drive you forward? So for me, if I would summarize the things I'm very passionate about are, helping people, showing people not just in precarious, situations like poverty or dire, social situations, showing people even who have serious, personal problems, right? That there's hope, because I've kind of witnessed a lot of depth in my life through both personal and career related situations that have enabled me to see that there's always light in the end of the tunnel. So that's a passion of mine. I love sitting with people and inspiring them and having them find solutions for problems. And I believe every problem has a solution. And the second thing is, interestingly enough, I had a huge downfall in my life. Like anybody in your life trajectory, you have all these ups and downs. And so during my downs, when you go through difficult circumstances in your personal life, you usually stop and reflect. And usually stop and reflect to find out what are the things that you can do, or to help yourself, the tools that can enable you to move forward. And that's when I got into holistic healing, meditation, and even went on to take a course in Reiki to use energy as a as a healing method. So that's something I'm also very passionate about, and it's more on the spiritual and personal level. Lastly, I love music, travel, writing, and photography. So I've also been certified as a professional photographer, and that just complements everything I do. So any country that I go to, any people that I'm helping, I'm always very interested in people photography, lifestyle photography, and writing stories that reflect people's lives. So really that's my passion. And as I said, this is really not about me, this is more about you. So I would really urge everyone here to take a moment after this webinar and write down at least 3 points, like I did, of what you're passionate about. And I actually hope that as entrepreneurs or emerging entrepreneurs, that you've actually built your businesses on your passion. I mean, not necessarily, it's not a necessity, but I think if you did, you would be really successful, because I believe that if you follow your passion, that will ultimately drive you to success. So first, before I talk about authentic leadership, I want to talk a little bit more about why authentic leadership is gaining interest and why it's becoming, center stage of discussions around leadership. So the first thing, if you look around you in the world, there's so many problems. There's so many social disorders, from global warming to discrimination, to economic problems, disease, shortened lifespans, malnutrition. The list is endless. And, ethnic problems, political problems. So, when we live in an environment that's so pressuring like that, the first thing that people look for is a leader. But they don't just look out for any leader. They look for a leader that can inspire trust. They look for someone that is true to themselves, that can really lead them out of these precarious and difficult situations in a genuine and authentic way. So I must say that, today there is a need for authentic leaders more than ever. So what is, I keep talking about authentic leadership. So what is it really? And let's start a little bit by defining it. So, you can read through this slide, and I'll give you my own, definition. So, the meaning of the word authentic is being credible, being genuine, being trustworthy. If you just take the word authentic, it would mean not being fake. So it's really it's really a leader who has adopted such qualities. It's a leader who demonstrates a passion for their own purpose. It's a leader that practices their values consistently. So in order to practice your values and to demonstrate a passion for your purpose, you really need to start by knowing yourself and aligning those values to what you do. Authentic leaders are also people who lead from, with their hearts and with their heads. So it's not only, objective leadership that's, focused on driving a company forward or making money, etc., but it's also leading from the heart. And I'll go much deeper into what does that mean as I go through my presentation. The other thing about authentic leaders is that they take really a great interest in others beyond themselves. So, they look for situations, and they are curious enough to search for situations where they can know their teams better, their stakeholders better, and know them on a personal level. So, they establish long-term meaningful relationships with different people. And it's not these, superficial business relations. It's really much more meaningful and in-depth. The other thing is, just like any other leader, they have tremendous self-discipline. So in order to succeed while being someone who leads by values, by heart, by passion, you gotta have like great self-discipline. So in a nutshell, if I may summarize it in just one sentence, I would say an authentic leader is a leader who is self-aware and who knows who they are. And if I would distinguish between that kind of leadership style and any other, I would say these are guys and women who are, besides guiding and inspiring people and taking the initiative to lead and devise, action plans to drive a business or having success for their companies, they are not just leaders. They are leaders who do that while being true to themselves. They are leaders who do that in a genuine way. And they are leaders who are emotionally intelligent and can really garner support and legitimacy and trust from others. This slide shows you a very general definition of leadership, but I personally, feel that, I really like that definition. I think it speaks to me and to my own personal style, and I think all of you should really, reflect on your purpose, on your values, on your motivations, and come up with your own definition of what does leadership mean to you. So this one is by someone called John Adams, and it says, if your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, and to do more, and become more, then you are a leader. And the reason I like this is because, it's a little bit selfless, I would say. So, although I don't believe anybody is truly 100% selfless, I believe that definition just goes on to show you that a leader is someone who puts his team first. A leader is someone who's aspirational and has a vision and a dream. And, a leader is someone who continues to learn and never believes that he is perfect, because once you do, you will lock out opportunities. So I have a question here from Rania Abdel Wahab, and it says, if I'd like to point out to the, to the leadership personality in a CV, for example, then how it can be mentioned. Basically, in the context of a CV, it's not truly, the CV is a document, that you're going to give to establish a certain image. So most of the time, I would say the leadership qualities that you would incorporate in there would be the leadership qualities that align with the role or the job that you are aspiring to apply for or aspiring to get. So, you gotta look and read the minds of those that you are submitting your CV to, and summarize, your leadership qualities to align with the job that you're applying for. So, and I would say there is no one size fit all on that question. It depends on you. So I think you gotta sit again with yourself and reflect on what are your values, what are your successes in your life, and these are the things, what has made you stood out as a leader, if you believe you're a leader. And these would be the leadership qualities that you would include on your CV in line with the job or the experience that you are applying for. I hope that answers your question. Now let's take a deeper look at authentic leadership. So, as I touched on a couple of these aspects in this wheel while I was speaking earlier. But if I would look at the 5 dimensions that define, that define an authentic leader, I would say, they are these 5: purpose, leading with purpose, leading from the heart, having self-discipline, knowing how to establish, long-term relationships, and, understanding deeply, your values and living up to your values, even during times of pressure. And, these would be really the 5 components that are consistently found in authentic leaders. So I'm going to start with purpose, and I touched on it when I was talking about myself, but I really urge you guys to think about that. So on purpose, I would say, it's really understanding yourself. So it all starts with you. It all starts with self-awareness and really getting in touch with your passion. And then using these passions and motivators and values and all those things that you've reflected on and found that, you know, they make who you are, and letting them motivate you and drive you in your career, be it an entrepreneur or somebody working in a company. Then I would go to values, and an authentic leader, you know, everybody has values, but the difference between an authentic leader and somebody else is that they never let go of their values. Even when everybody is against what they value, they stand up for their values. So, you know, they have deeply held beliefs that guide their actions. And it's not what they say, but it's what they do. Even under pressure, they don't let go of their values. They act on what they believe. So that is being authentic, and that is being true to yourself. And I can give you an example. I mean, when I joined the UN to work with refugees, I mean, and the first year, after a year of working with them, I was asked to go to Sudan, to the east of Sudan. And, you know, my entire family was not supportive of that decision. I had lots of my friends telling me that I'm crazy. Why would I throw myself in the middle of nowhere in the east of the country? I had a lot of resistance. This was not really the norm. But what happened is I stood up to my values, and my values were simply that I want to be at the service of others. I would like to work in the field of human rights because I'm passionate about that. So again, I upheld my values despite of the resistance that I was facing. And so under pressure, I never let go. And so I encourage all of you to really identify what are these things you're passionate about, because that's going to help you understand what your purpose is. And then, you know, based on that, you will also understand your values. And from there on, hold on to your values. I'll move on to, you know, leading from the heart. And, you know, that's so important. And that's why earlier on, you know, I talked about identifying your passion. And hopefully that some of you here have set up businesses or are planning to set up businesses that align, you know, with their passion. Because when you lead from the heart, you are authentic. You're going to be successful. Because the more you work on things you love, the more you're going to give from the heart, and the more, you know, the results are going to be beyond, you know, the ordinary. The other thing is when you lead from the heart, you know, you have compassion and empathy for others that you serve, you know, including your team, including people you interact with. So again, it's so important. You would enable people to have, you know, work-life balance, and therefore they'll want to work for you even more. When somebody has a problem, they'll come find you, and, you know, they'll know that you're going to help them. So again, what that results into is really building a relationship of trust and transparency amongst the entire team. So leading from the heart, I mean, I cannot underline or highlight how important that is. And I would tell you, I mean, I know for example, our CEO, whenever it's the birthday of one of her direct reports, senior executives in our company, she actually sends, you know, their parents a letter or their wife a letter telling them how great, you know, that team member of hers is. And that is leading from the heart. It's not just about getting the results delivered for your business. It's about recognizing people. It's about valuing them. It's about going beyond and interacting with their families. And that leads me to the dimension on relationships. So, you know, again, authentic leaders, they build relationships. They build long-term relationships. They provide feedback and grounding for their teams. They build trust and commitment. And again, all of these elements, purpose, value, leading from the heart, contribute to how strong these relationships are going to be and how much trust that leader can build amongst his stakeholders. Last but not least is self-discipline. In order to succeed, you got to have high standards for yourself and for your team. And, you know, you got to challenge people around on, you know, and encourage them and inspire them to deliver, you know, what they maybe believe that they wouldn't be able to do. And to do that, you cannot do that unless you have self-discipline, unless you're organized, unless you can manage your time, unless you can prioritize. With all the pressures that you have to run a business, that becomes a key critical success factor. You don't promise people things that you cannot deliver. That becomes, you know, an element of that can help you build trust. I'm going to stop here before I move on, and I'm going to look at two questions that have come in. One is from Salma Ibrahim, and she says, sometimes it's tricky to identify the passion Any tips on this? So, okay, so that's a really good question, Salma. I think it's really difficult, right, to find your passion. But I think what can really help is really taking moments to sit down and reflect on what makes you happy. You gotta ask yourself, what are the moments in life where you felt the happiest, and what were you doing at these moments? What were the things that led you to that happiness? Is it a piece of work that you've delivered, at the highest quality and been recognized for it? Is it going to different countries and discovering new things? Is it really doing a piece of art? I mean, there's so many things that people love in their lives and that have made them happy. But the problem is that the world is so fast that we never stop and think about those things and what they are. But if we truly do and take a moment to realize, what are we grateful for in life and what do we love so much, we would come a step closer to identifying our passion. So I hope I've answered your question. So I have a question as well from Tule Farah, and she says, "Hi everyone, I have a question too. Those who are currently in leadership roles forget very quickly how difficult it was for them to get an opportunity to shine and apply all the amazing leadership skills a younger candidate might have. They just ignore every form of try and struggle for getting in touch with them. You try harder and harder because you know they will be amazed by your background and amazed by what you can bring to the organization. However, every email, every call, every letter, every contact through people who know them, networking events, etc., fall upon deaf ears. They don't even bother looking at your CV. Do you have any breakthrough advice in this regard?" That's, again, a really good and interesting question. I would say, recruiters and companies get at least, I'll tell you, I get 20 CVs a day, right, from different people in the UAE and in the region who want to work for PepsiCo or join my team to work on CSR or other. So one of the things is, how do you stand out in the middle of the crowd? How do you present yourself in a way that is going to make that person just leave everything and want to contact you and hire you? So the answer is, you got to find what makes you stand out. You got to identify what makes you unique, and you got to present that in an attractive way. So for example, if I'm receiving every day 20 or 200 CVs from different candidates who are using exactly the same Word document, the same template, the same cover letter that says exactly the same thing. God knows if they wrote it themselves or not. I'm only going to probably go through these CVs if I'm actually looking to hire someone right now. So the way to do it is really, why don't you think of creative ways and in innovative ways? So one is to, create a video of yourself. That cannot be missed. A 3-minute video that just tells me who you are, And I know it would take a lot more effort from you to do, but definitely it would be more attractive. The other thing is, we often get, very, very long CVs of multiple pages, and again, everybody is busy, everybody has tons of things to do, and, going through a CV of four pages is just impossible, I would limit my CV to 1 or 2 pages max, and actually make the person who's reviewing that CV intrigued to meet you in order to know more. The other thing is, I would do summaries. I would do summaries of my, I always start my CV with summary of qualifications, and that's 4 or 5 bullet points maximum that summarize my leadership skills and my qualifications. And then I would move on to the actual jobs. And instead, I see a lot of CVs where people talk about, their job responsibilities versus what they have achieved. For me, that's it's interesting, but not interesting enough to contact them. But if I see results or achievements that really fit within a job that I'm hiring for, I'd be like, I want to talk to this person right now. So I would say, make it visual, make it interactive as much as you can. Create something, a creative thing that would attract the recruiter or the company to contact you, like a video. And then last but not least, summarize your achievements versus your job responsibilities. Okay, so Reem El-Banna is saying maybe because as long as they reach the senior level, they expect professionalism that they really need, and there is no time left to waste. Absolutely. I mean, I think, you have, I mean, I cannot tell you, I mean, every day, senior leaders are in meetings from morning to evening with no breaks, no nothing. I mean, you barely have any time to breathe. In addition to being in these meetings, you have a responsibility to get back to your emails, and therefore, you gotta find really professional calibers and something catchy, like I explained in terms of the CV. All right, so I'm gonna look at the next slide, and this is called Terry's Wheel of Authentic Leaders Characteristics, and that defines. So we talked a lot about the big picture of authentic leadership and what does it mean. Now we really need to look at what are the characteristics that make up an authentic leader. So as I mentioned, there are people who lead with passion and purpose. If you don't know your purpose, like I said, discover your passion, and I explained a little bit how you can do that earlier, and it will lead you to your purpose. They lead based on their values and morals more than anyone else, and this determines their behavior, and they live up to these values and morals even in difficult times under pressure. They rely on their teams and on the relationships that they build. They count on others versus just on themselves. When they shine, they don't want to shine on their own. They want to shine with the people who, with their teams, which leads to a lot of connectedness in the organizations that they run. They have self-discipline. They are consistent in what they say, do, and act. They lead from the heart and with compassion for others and for the world around them. And that's a really important point. So the passion and purpose piece enables them to be of service to others and also to take actions in their own business positions, but for the greater good. So now moving forward, authentic leaders means, they are genuine, they are visionaries, and they're able to see the big picture. They're pure, they're real, they take responsibility for their decisions, they take accountability when they need to. If they make a mistake, they admit this mistake and try to fix it rather than shy away from it. On leading from the heart, one of the great quotes that I really like is from Princess Diana. So she says, "I don't go by the rule book. I lead from the heart, not the head." So Princess Diana, as you know, was a humanitarian at heart. And again, she is an example of, leading from the heart and contributing to the community and to the greater good. Another thing that, authentic leaders do is that, they engage people to follow them in a shared and inspired common direction. So people on their teams know where they're going. They know what the vision of the organizations are. They're not lost or trying to understand where are we headed. Everybody is on the same page, and that leads to success and great results from a performance standpoint. What they also do is, to be inspired is great, but to inspire is incredible. So what they do is they influence people to accomplish shared goals by inspiring trust and putting the team first and continuously aiming to make the team better. So it's not about them being successful and them being good at what they do. It's about making those they work with even better than they are when they first joined the organization or started working with them. Another thing is that they lead, as I explained, by moral or conviction. So they are not fake, and they are true to their values and their moral beliefs. And here is a great quote from Gandhi, where he said, "A no answer is uttered from the deepest conviction is better than a yes merely uttered to please, or worse, to avoid trouble." And here is a great example of how to be authentic, how to be true to yourself. It's the ability to say no, based on your beliefs, based on your values, based on believing that this is the right thing to do, rather than saying yes just to please everyone in the room or avoiding to get in trouble. So that is authentic leadership. The other thing is, being original. So being original is very important. No one can be authentic by being a copy of someone else. People will only trust a genuine leader. So there is a novelist called John Barth, and he said, the story of your life is not your life, it is your story. So in other words, it's your personal story that matters. Each one of you on that webinar, has a story, and this is what's meaningful. It doesn't matter what she did or he did. What matters is what you did and who you are. So it's really your personal story, and not really also the facts of your life. It's more about your experience. So your life story is like a permanent, recording play that should be playing in your head over and over. You should replay the events and personal interactions that are important for you in your own life, and attempt to make sense of them so that you can find your right place in the world, be it in the business world or in your personal world. This is so important. And that is, being original and not copying others. All right, on the same point, I will go to Steve Jobs, who said, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. So here's a quote that really captures so many dimensions of authentic leadership. One is being true to yourself. Two is being original and authentic and not living other people's lives or following other people's thinking. And then the other thing is really standing up to your values when, everybody is against that, possibly. And last but not least, leading from the heart and following your intuition, because I can tell you that, you could have the best action plan, you could have the best strategy, but, your intuition might be telling you that that's not going to work. And if you continue to ignore that intuitive feeling and what you're getting from the heart, you might be missing a great opportunity. So I think that quote is just encapsulating everything about authentic leadership. Authentic leaders, as I mentioned, are very self-disciplined, but what they do as well is they really ensure to act in an ethical way, to conduct business in an ethical way, and doing it right is so important to them. So for example, that slide on this that you see, shows you some of the keywords that they look at. And so it's all, they focus on honesty, on transparency, on trust, on respect, on, being accountable and showing responsibility. They focus on innovation, on quality. So at the end of the day, it's really, doing it the right way, being ethical with their teams, with their customers, with everything, around them, is what really matters to them and what they focus on. So on the same point, I would say, they look at morals, they look at values, they look at philosophy, they understand what their own philosophy is, what their own morals and virtues are. They have so much self-awareness that they completely, understand what direction they want to take in their own lives and what direction they want to drive others. And so it's easy, to sit there and list your values and to live by them when things are going well. But when your success in your career and your life, is hanging in the balance, you discover what's important and what you're prepared to sacrifice versus what you aren't. And, this is when, your morals and value come to play, and where the values that form authentic leadership are, which are derived from your own beliefs and conviction, are really tested under pressure. You will not know whether you're living up to your values until you are in a difficult situation. And if you manage to stick to them and to your morals and ethics during that difficult situations, that truly indicates that you are authentic and true to yourself. Tule just sent another question which says, in my company, I have a shadowing program. Every junior person shadows a leader in the company. This means they attend all client meetings, prepare pitches, participate in staff training programs on the leader's side, so they know what their superiors expect of them. That way I found I could get the best out of them. I know leaders don't have time, but what's the point of being a leader if we cannot pass on what we know? I think a real leader is someone who can pass on what he or she knows. A leader is someone who can get the best out of those who work with him or her. So Tule, I completely agree. And I completely agree with your point, and I think, part of being authentic is allowing your team to learn and grow. And like I mentioned earlier, it's about putting them even before yourself. So again, like, this is spot on. By giving them learning opportunities, by allowing them to shadow other leaders, you're doing just that. All right, and from Marwa Suleiman, I have a really interesting comment that says, I believe authentic leaders are also able to channel their ego in the right direction and not purely self-serving. Yeah, absolutely, Marwa. And I think this is spot on, Yani, as a point, because I think in people early in their career and as they grow as leaders, they're driven by ego. They're driven by what's materialistic. They're driven by wanting to drive a nice car, own a nice house, and all the things that go along with ego. And the more they grow as leaders and stay longer in their positions, etc., they start to look for meaning. They start to look for purpose. And this is where you go beyond just being a leader into being an authentic leader. So the authentic leader will have gone beyond just being driven by egoistic and materialistic and things, and really being driven by purpose and meaning, which is not only self-serving, but is also serving the greater good and a bigger purpose. So I completely agree with that comment as well. All right, and again, on doing it the right way. So they believe wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. Right is right, even if only you are doing it. So they have the confidence to be able to stand up for what is right. I touched on this point, which is, they are transparent, they share information, they bring their teams on board, and that inspires trust. So, again, transparency is so important. Sharing of information is so important to inspire trust. And one of my, most favorite quotes on trust is that a relationship without trust is like a car without gas. You can stay in it all you want, but it won't go anywhere. So again, authentic leaders are usually people who have managed to build trust, trustworthy, reliable, persuasive relationships, and they lead by example. So when they lead by example and they do themselves what they expect of others, people trust them. And so that's another very important quality. So yeah, Salma, they channel their ego. So yes, absolutely, they do. I would say consistency is key. So their actions are consistent. They don't change their mind about vision and objectives every other day. They have clarity on where they need to go. And they are consistent in what they say and in what they do. Today, they don't treat you in one way and then tomorrow in another. They live up again to their values. And then because they've put so much effort in building relationships, their businesses and their teams and their projects benefit from the power of connectedness. Everyone in that company or team believes in the leader, believes in his vision, understands it, has a great working relationship with everybody else, and therefore the organization is powerful, the project is powerful, the idea is powerful. You can apply that to any situation. The other thing is that, if you can't figure out your purpose, because someone was asking me earlier, how do I, figure out my passion? But really, on purpose, you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion. Because your passion will lead you directly to your purpose. To become an authentic leader, you've got to have self-awareness. You don't have to be born with specific character and personality traits to be an authentic leader. You don't have to wait for approval to be an authentic leader. You don't have to be a senior leader in a company or a leader in the business world to be an authentic leader. You can discover your potential and fulfill your leadership destiny with your own hands. So on that point, again, Sausan Abbasi here is asking, the leader can be an employee or just an entrepreneur. The leader can be even a mother who is leading her family. The leader can be a young boy leading his friends to do a new activity. Anyone can be a leader. It's just that to be authentic, you gotta focus on those criteria and characteristics that we've explained. And you don't have to be born with them. You can acquire them along the way. One of the key components that you need to acquire, if you don't have, is having compassion for others and for the world around us. So that includes, feeling the suffering of others, working to alleviate that suffering. All about leading from the heart. So, you have a team and you feel what they're going through. So they don't come and tell you, you know what, I'm overloaded. And you go, oh, well, that's life. You're overloaded, deal with it. Well, that is not compassionate, not empathetic, and will not really lead the organization very far. So you got to understand your team, what causes them pain, what causes them happiness. You got to have awareness of what matters to them and work towards resolving that and considering everything that they tell you, because if you don't, you're not going to build the best relationship with them. So you could build a relationship where they just work because they got to work and get paid at the end of the month. And a lot of people do that. They go through life just working and delivering just because they want the money or the package at the end of the month. But in order to have a truly successful organization with strong relationships, you got to be compassionate. You can't ignore that guy who tells you I'm overloaded. You can't ignore that guy who tells you I want to go see my son, his graduation, for example. So I want some time off work. So you gotta really be very simple, relate to people's emotional needs and try to address that. And so Rana Abu Sidu is saying you have to read the situation your organization and employees face. Absolutely, Rana. This is exactly what I'm talking about, and it's really all about emotional intelligence as well. Reem Banna is saying, if I don't have to be born with all these leadership skills, then shall it be acquired? And even though I believe not all who learn and have passion to be a leader can reach such a thing, is they don't have it in the depths of their soul. I mean, the leader characteristics. So I'm not really clear what the question is. But what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is, is it acquired or are you born with it? Can authentic leadership be learned? So the answer is absolutely, it is a yes. So many of you here will ask me, how? How can I, if I'm not born a leader that is authentic, how can I do that? So again, we've talked about a couple of things, but now in terms of key actions to take, one is to explore. And when I say explore, I'm talking about exploring yourself. So self-awareness and exploration is really the first step. Authentic leaders need to recognize and understand their own weaknesses and their own strengths to be able to lead others in the right way. So it's all about exploring who you are, what your passion is, and what your values are. So again, this next section in the presentation are all key actions that I really urge all of you to think about after this webinar and start to reflect on and to see, how can you transform? I believe all of you here are really leaders. If you're an entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur, or even, I'm sure many of you in your own personal lives. So the first step to being authentic is really exploring beyond anything or anyone, your own self, and understanding your strengths and weaknesses, your passions and your value, and exploring really who you are. The second thing is being curious and taking a genuine interest in people, creating the situations that will tell you more about your teams, about the people you need to influence in order to run your business. So on that point, I want to talk really about one thing. Leadership is really a choice. Besides it being something that you can acquire, it is a choice. You can choose to become an authentic leader by developing specific leadership competencies. An authentic leader is someone that encourages people to become the best they can and leads by example. So you choose to lead by example. They spend their time building bridges instead of tearing them down. So also you choose to solve situations versus ignoring them. So again, leadership is really a choice. An authentic leadership can surely be acquired. And again, going back to the point I tackled earlier about emotional intelligence, getting closer to your team, understanding what they want, and tackling all these really like all the situations that matter to them. That's the second point, and truly the second action you can take in order to be authentic. So the first one is understanding yourself. The second one is taking real and genuine and honest interest in others that you work with. The other thing is, as Nelson Mandela said, lead from the back and let others believe they are the front. So, that really is the third criteria. Authentic leaders don't want to always be the center stage of everything, and they don't want people to be just talking about them. They want people to talk about the great achievements of their teams. So what they do is they let others lead, and they let others believe that they are the leaders, while really overseeing and leading from the back and just providing direction. So the less involved in terms of dictating tactics and how things should be done, the better of an authentic leader you are. And what I mean here is not to be detached from your team, but what I mean is to give room and space for your team to actually lead. So the next, slide is really about also objectively analyzing things. So they need to be quick at breaking down a very complex problem into a very a simple solution. So by in that context, they got to be very quick at asking the right questions. So the where, the how many, the who, the proximity, the package, the demographics. So they need to be quickly analyzing all of the questions that need to be asked in order to resolve a very complex problem. So one of the actions to take is also to empathize. So empathize is to demonstrate consistently that you are empathetic and supporting to your teams, and to make yourself available. So a lot of people will tell you, I'm busy, I don't have time to travel to see my team, I don't have time to meet them even, or to speak to them. The thing is, if you don't have an open door policy and make yourself available to others, they're not going to trust you, and you're not going to come across as authentic. The other thing is engage. So engagement is key. To deliver on commitments that you make as a leader, you got to engage people and you got to let them help you. So consult others and allow them to lead and seek their feedback and engage them. One thing I want to end with is really that leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. And so that's what I will leave you with. And all of you as leaders, I urge you to build your teams and to help them become the way, become the leader that you became one day, and mentor them through that leadership journey. So to sum it up, if I would put the competencies for you to become authentic leaders, I would say they are four key things. So one is self-awareness and self-management. And these are all under personal competencies. And personal competencies are all about how we manage ourselves. So in order to understand, and be able to manage yourself, you got to be self-aware and understand how to manage yourself. The second thing is really social competence. So how do we manage relationships around us? Because we don't operate in the world, in silos or on our own. So there, we got to talk about social awareness and, relationship management. So I'm going to be taking the first one, the self-awareness piece. So if you look at that slide, self-awareness is all about three key things: emotional self-awareness, accurate self-awareness, and self-confidence. So the emotional is the ability to read your own emotions and to recognize their impact on yourself and on others. And it is often referred to as your intuition or your gut sense. So the first component of being self-aware is understanding, the impact of your feelings and emotions. Secondly is having an accurate self-assessment of yourself. So knowing your own strengths and weaknesses and putting that into perspective and using these to your advantages in order to lead your businesses and teams effectively. Last but not least is your self-confidence. So knowing your own abilities and limitations and commanding a sense of your own self-worth. I mean, you gotta believe in yourself and in your ideas in order to be able to inspire others to come on board with those ideas. So this is really the first, step, I would say, or competency that you should gain in order to be an effective, authentic leader. So an example slide of, you know, an extremely self-aware, example of someone who would be really self-aware. It's someone who has looked at their weaknesses as strengths, as their fears, as, as elements of empowerment, as, some people who know how to manage, difficult situations. So if you look at this, it says, I'm strong because I know my weaknesses. I'm beautiful because I'm aware of my flaws. I'm fearless because I've learned to recognize illusion from real. I am wise because I learned from my mistakes, and I'm a lover because I have felt hate, and I can laugh because I have known sadness. So, this looks like, like one of those ads, you would post on your Facebook page. But the reality is this is really, showcasing somebody who has thought so deeply about who they are and how self-aware they are. Because everything that they've been through, they've twisted it in a positive way and can relate where they are today to an experience from their past. So I really, encourage you to think, how am I coming across to others? How am I perceived by others? And do I have ways and habits that may be, offensive or annoying to others? Am I too passive? Am I too aggressive? Am I too assertive? And think about all those negative things. Look at ways to learn from these experiences, or character defects, if I may call them. So knowing our authentic selves requires courage. You need courage in order to be able to write a quote like the one we see on the screen. You need courage because you need to confront yourself in an honest way and openly examine your experiences. The next point is really, if we go back, self-management, right? So, on a personal level, to manage yourself, you got to have self-awareness and know how to manage yourself. So the self-management piece, if you look at that circle, or cycle, I would say, on emotional self-awareness, which once you are self-aware about your emotions and recognize your emotions and their impact on others, you gotta identify, a way that can help you keep your emotions under control and in check. So that is really all about self-control. You gotta look at ways to be transparent. And when I say that, I say, you gotta manage, how you're going to be, you gotta think of, how am I going to show people that I'm honest, that I have integrity, that I'm trustworthy. I know myself, I'm aware of who I am, but others might not see it. So you gotta look at ways at how you're gonna convey that in your interaction. Adaptability. So adaptability is key, because that's demonstrating that you are flexible and adaptive to change, and that you are able to adapt and overcome obstacles. So again, self-management is all about exerting, self-control to control your emotions, demonstrating transparency, adaptability. On achievement, is your ability to demonstrate a drive to improve performance and meet personal standards of excellence. So, if you're leading a team and your standards are low and you don't really challenge them, why would they be motivated to do better? They're going to think whatever they're doing is just great. So again, achievement is very important in terms of, how you manage yourself and others, and constantly challenging yourself to do better. Taking initiative and acting when necessary to seize opportunities. And last but not least, embracing the positive and being optimistic. So, these are really the personal competencies for being an authentic leader. I'm going to leave you again with another quote from Theodore Roosevelt, and he talks about self-discipline in specific, and he says, the one quality which sets one man apart from another is the key which lifts one to every aspiration while others are caught up in the mire of mediocrity, is not talent, it's not formal education, and it's not intellectual brightness, it is self-discipline. With self-discipline, all things are possible. Without it, even the simplest goal can seem like the impossible dream. So again, I go back to the self-discipline as one of the key dimensions for successful, authentic leadership. Okay, I'm going to move on now to the second part of the competencies. So I'm going back to the slide. And so besides being personally competent as a leader to manage yourself, you gotta have social competence, and that will help you manage relationships. So there are two key criteria there: social awareness and relationship management. So on social awareness, that consists of three things: organizational awareness, so understanding your business or the company you work for, or the entity that you're contributing to. The second is having empathy, which we talked a lot about, and the third is really being of service to others and for the greater good. So I'm going to take a moment to talk about the meaning of service. And I've talked about that already, but the meaning, I would say, the meaning of life, as Pablo Picasso puts it, is really to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. So all of us on this point, I would tell you, all of us really have a talent, right? All of us are gifted in one way or the other. So once you know what you're gifted with, what makes you unique, then your greater purpose or service or authenticity as a leader would be to try and give that talent away. So let's say if I have I don't know, a great voice, for example, as a singer. So yeah, I sing to myself every morning in the bathroom, but then really becoming authentic as a leader is going out and using that voice in the service of others, helping others who aspire to sing become better singers by teaching them how to pitch their voice, etc. So whatever it is your talent, be it a good voice, or you're a good writer, or you're an artist, or you're actually good at inspiring others, it's really taking that gift and that talent and giving it away and letting others benefit. Okay, so that's really on the social aspect of authentic leadership. So you have people like Gandhi, who said, find yourself in the service of others. You have people like Mother Teresa, who said, who dedicated her entire life to doing that. You have people like Einstein, who say, only a life lived in the service of others is worth living. So the reason I'm showing you really these quotes is to show you that true leaders who were truly authentic were people who didn't only think of themselves, but they also thought of the greater good and of how to help others, and they managed their relationships that way. I'm going to move on to the second social competence that you need to gain in terms of your leadership. So relationship management is really about teamwork and collaboration, being able to diffuse conflicts, being a catalyst for change. So you really drive change, developing others, and again, I've talked about this so much today, but it's about putting your team first. Influence, inspiration, so being able to inspire and influence others around you. So inspirational leadership is really by encouraging to a compelling vision. It's really about influence through persuasion. It's really about developing others by bolstering their abilities through providing continuous feedback and guidance to them. It's about being a change catalyst by leading the organization or the team into a new direction. It's about resolving disagreements through conflict management. It's about using teamwork and collaboration to ensure team building and cooperation. So, these are key things that authentic leaders must do in order to drive positive relationships. Now that I'm done with the competencies, and I've gone through them quite quickly, but I'm happy, to share my email at the end of the session in case you have any additional questions. I'm going to move on to a really interesting quote from Queen Rania. So she says, we are stronger when we listen and smarter when we share. So, that just says it all. I mean, when you listen to your team or to people in your life, even your husband, your wife, your friends, they'll trust you more. They'll want to be with you more because, we live such a materialistic and fast life that nobody stops to listen. And we make decisions based on what we believe is right versus based on what we know from others and simply because we don't stop and listen. So again, I think this is so key. And we are smarter when we share. And that is exactly to the point of wanting to share with your teams and with people around you the fruits of the talent that you you carry with yourself in this world. Having talked so positively about authentic leadership, I didn't want to end this presentation without talking about the derailers. You know, along the leadership journey, it's easy to develop shortcomings that link directly to our failures. So if we don't stop and reflect and continuously monitor our actions and ourselves, we can easily derail, and we can in overnight, you know, in the span of an hour, lose trust, lose relationships that we've built. You know, I mean, you know, like, I mean, you can destroy everything that you've done as a leader just in one moment, but by basically failing to realize your derailers and the things that can put you down. So what are some of the types of derailers that can make somebody fail? One is what we call imposters, and these are guys who unconsciously lack self-awareness and self-esteem. So they don't understand their strengths and weaknesses. They've never stopped to reflect. And that automatically puts them in a tough spot when they're faced with pressure. You know, they are unable to guide their teams in the right direction. They are unable to tell people authentically and with truth what they want, because they themselves don't know what they want, because they don't even know themselves. So again, this is one big derailer. Rationalizers. So these are people who consciously deviate from their values. So, you know, they tell you, I believe in this, but then under pressure, they act in a different way and they don't live up to their values. So that's a huge derailer, because people automatically lose trust in them. Glory seekers. So these are guys or women who are motivated by seeking the world's acclaim. So they love to be in the light. They love to be center stage, but they don't really, you know, they don't really care much about others. So glory seekers, if you are driven by recognition and you are driven by fame and wanting, you know, glory all the time, then you gotta really, you know, balance out, you know, how you show your team that you care about them and the people around you that you care about them, and that it's not only about you, it's also about others. There's also loners. So, and I'll tell you, I'm personally, I could easily come into that derailer sometimes. So, you know, in certain settings, I can really be a loner, and in others, I can be, you know, the glory seeker or the shooting star or whatever. But on the loner piece, that's so important. A lot of people like to spend time alone, and they fail to build personal support structures. And so the derailer here is, yani, they come across as arrogant or insecure. So, you know, that's again, you know, being aware of what your derailers are and learning how to self-control these derailers and to manage them takes a lot of effort and time. And this, you know, really can make or break your leadership and success. Shooting stars, you know, they lack the grounding of an integrated life. So, you know, they have no purpose, they have no meaning. They just, you know, want to be impulsive and act on the moment. And, you know, they're not grounded. They don't know their values. They don't let their values drive them or drive their team. So again, these are also, this is, you know, they just go with the flow. They live one day at a time. So that, you know, is also a derailer. So I really encourage all of you to think of what your derailers are. So I'm going to look now at, you know, how do leaders lose the way and they lose sight and get derailed from what they want to achieve. So, you know, what causes a leader to lose their way? One is when the root goal becomes about gaining power, maximizing wealth, or becoming famous. And so that goes back to Marwa's point about ego. If you continue to be driven by ego and all those materialistic things, then you will not be an authentic leader. Okay, so to be an authentic leader, you know, what is the solution? The solution is that the root goal that you're working towards is really a desire to serve something greater than yourself. And by doing that, that gives you internal satisfaction. So, you know, all these social enterprises that are starting, that have a greater purpose, these, I mean, you know, true definition of a desire to serve something greater than yourself. These guys start businesses because they want to give back to the world. Doesn't mean they're not going to make profit, but they're still going to give back to the world. So In order not to lose your way, try to focus on that greater idea than yourself. Then another one is when you lose touch and people can't tell you the truth. So when you lose the trust and the connection with the team, people are no longer going to trust you because you don't have an open door, because you don't want to listen, because you don't empathize with their needs, and therefore you lose touch with the people. So the solution is to stay grounded. The solution is always to seek feedback from trusted sources who will tell you the truth. So when you ask for feedback, don't go and ask the people, that 100%, they truly love you and they're going to tell you you're the greatest person in the world. Go and ask those that actually might not say that. And that's what's going to really help you excel and grow as a leader. You got to be really open to be an authentic leader. And seeking feedback, a lot of people work every day and they never once stop to ask their teams what they think about them. So again, that would totally be one way of making you lose sight. So the next one is when enough is never enough, the abnormal craving for more and more success, or an entitlement mentality. Gravity doesn't apply, rooted in pride. So there are leaders who become so successful that they keep thinking that they're the best thing that happened to the world. Their pride, can break mountains. Their teams continue to deliver great results, but it's never enough for them. They crave for more recognition, for more success, for more money. So again, that can really take you off the leadership path. So the solution is to define your circle, to build personal support structures, to find mentors, to welcome diverse opinions, and to see mistakes as learning opportunities. When we are faced with loss, embarrassment, or fear, our survival is at stake. That can make us lose our way. So fear, guys, is a key, component of or aspect of failure. I mean, fear can drive people to do things that they would have never done in life. I mean, a lot of people are driven by fear. A lot of actions we do are based on fear. Though, so the solution there is to trust that things will get better, to believe in your own abilities, to work through difficult time, and to remember God or a greater power, in your life, and to continue sharing with others your feelings and how you feel about certain things. So what I'm trying to say here is that, you should not undermine your fear. You should put it into context and you should share with those you trust, because fear can truly influence your success in life and how you move forward as a leader. So authentic leaders, coming to a close, I would like to say that they need to bring something of themselves into their context. So they don't just lead, they bring their values and their morals to the organization that they lead. It's not about just following a formula for success or someone else's footsteps in terms of their leadership. They define their own leadership style, and it's a leadership style that aligns with their values and their morals and that is true to themselves and wouldn't contradict their values. And they stick to that throughout difficult and good situations. They look beyond profit and promotions. They look at a vision for the people and for the world. They look at how they can change the world. So in order to come to an end in this webinar, I'm just going to sum up what I've talked about. So they bring out the best in ourselves. They make the organizations that they work for better. They set an example of positive behavior for those around us. They drive quality performance through leadership competencies. They build honesty, establish integrity, promote fairness, demand respect, and it takes a lot of courage to be authentic. So I'm going to stop here and say that your impactful career and even your life purpose is found where your greatest gifts and talents meet the world's greatest needs. So be authentic. Thank you very much. A question here from Marwa Sliman, and she said, any specific messages to women around authentic leadership? Okay, so to answer that question, because there, again, like I said, there's no recipe or criteria, and especially when you talk about authentic leadership, it's truly about you. But I'll talk about myself on the women piece, because I think the biggest obstacle for women rising to become authentic leaders is that women have two, I mean, my own personal experience is that we shy away from two key things. One is we don't like, as women, to shake the waters, right? We don't like to enter a room and to create trouble. We think that sometimes by expressing unpopular opinions that that's going to create trouble. And so we stay away from that, and we continuously try to put emotions into play, and we continuously try, you know, to be diplomatic and tactful when presenting things. So I think I would personally really encourage women, you know, to talk their truth, to be authentic by talking their truth and not being afraid to express their opinions, regardless of the setting or the meeting room or the business that they run and the people they are around, or even in their own personal lives. If their husbands don't believe in their ideas, if their fathers or mothers or anyone, their friends, you know, undermine what they are contributing. So this is one advice to women. Don't be afraid to express your opinion. The second one is really learning to promote yourself. So I know a lot of women who are, their motivator or value is, you know, they love to be recognized, right? This is the one thing that would motivate them to do more, the recognition. However, they are the worst people at asking for that recognition. So, you know, I would truly encourage every woman to package and promote their ideas and their work and not being afraid to talk about those ideas. So the key here is really believing in your ideas and selling them to the world as if you were, you know, introducing yourself. I mean, everybody here does a great job at introducing themselves in a meeting. Do the same with your ideas. Believe in them. If you believe in them, others will believe in them. If they're linked to your passion and your values, you know, even more, you'll speak from the heart, so people will believe in them more. So I think, Marwa, my two advices for women is don't be afraid ever to speak your truth and to say your opinion, even if you know that nobody agrees with it. And the second advice would be authentic and to drive, you know, your ideas forward in an authentic way. You gotta not be afraid as well of bragging and promoting your ideas. But not too much, of course.
Noha, someone asked you a question. Is there any book that you recommend us to read?
I don't have any book on mind right now, to be honest. But there is one book that I really like. It's a compilation of different stories from women in the business world, in the NGO world, and other. And it's called Break the Ceiling and Touch the Sky. And it has basically success secrets of the world's most inspirational women, right? And it's just different women from different walks of life who have put their stories in a book. So, you know, I would really recommend to read it. It's by Anthony Rose, but it's not about authentic leadership. It's stories of different women who have made it either in the corporate or business world. Corporate, you know, as in working for companies or as entrepreneurs.